The zombie apocalypse began with a knock at the door. TCLucas was sitting at his computer when it came. Not a normal knock. Frantic pounding that shook the entire frame. Pookie, open the bloody door. He recognized Paulina's voice immediately. Lucas ran down the stairs and pulled the door open. Paulina stumbled inside, carrying a cricket bat in one hand and a carrier bag full of bottled water in the other. Her jacket was torn, her hair was soaked in the rain, and there was blood across one cheek. You hurt? Lucas asked. No, it's not mine. Something staggered beneath the street lamp behind her. It wore the remains of a delivery uniform. Half its face had been torn away, yet it continued moving towards the house. Lucas quickly slammed the door. What was that? Paulina pushed a chair beneath her handle. That was the reason Big P the G decided we're leaving. Later, the creature threw itself against the door. Television in the living room suddenly changed to an emergency broadcast. A terrified newsreader warned people to remain indoors and avoid anyone behaving violently. Behind her, someone screamed. The broadcast ended abruptly. Lucas grabbed his phone. We need to find the others. We need weapons first, Paulina replied. Lucas picked up a heavy torch while Paulina tightened her grip on a cricket bat. The front window shattered. A grey arm pushed through the glass, fingers clawing at the curtains. Paulina struck the arm from her side. Door. Pookie. Told you not to call me that. You'll always be Pookie, even during the apocalypse. They escaped through a garden as infected forced its way into the house. They found Sophie inside a small convenience shop. The front doors had been barricaded with shopping baskets, shelving units, and a freezer full of ice cream. Sophie stood behind the counter with a hammer in one hand and a packet of biscuits in the other. You took your time, she said. We had an unexpected visitor, Lucas replied. Paulina looked at Sophie's enormous backpack. What's in there? Food, water, batteries, and chocolate. Anything useful? Chocolate is useful. A loud crash came from the back of the shop. The storeroom door shook as something slammed into it. Sophie calmly placed the biscuits in her backpack. That's what's been happening for approximately 10 minutes. Didn't think to leave? Lucas asked. Was waiting for you. The storeroom door began to splinter. Paulina pointed towards the fire exit. Time to go. They ran into the alley just as 3 infected burst into the shop behind them. The town had fallen into chaos. The cars were abandoned in the roads. Smoke rose from several buildings and alarms echoed through the streets. Groups of infected wandered between the wreckage, attacking anything that moved. Near the railway bridge, someone was shouting for help. Rip stood on the roof of the van, swinging a tire iron at the infected reaching for his legs. Any chance of some assistance? Paulina charged forward and knocked one creature aside with her bat. Lucas distracted another while Sophie struck it from behind with her hammer. Rips jumped down and finished the last one with a tire iron. Excellent timing, he said. I had that completely under control. You were trapped on a van, Sophie replied. It was a tactical position. Lucas examined the road ahead. Where are the others? Dottie and Pete were at the garage when everything started. We should find them before the infected do. Rips retrieved a backpack from the van. Inside were several tools, a first aid kit, and a single tin of beans. Sophie looked disappointed. No tin opener? Rips produced one from his pocket. Sophie nodded approvingly. You can stay. The garage doors were covered in bloody handprints. Lucas knocked 3 times. Who is it? A voice from inside called out. People who aren't trying to eat you? After a few seconds, the door opened just enough for Dottie to look outside. He held a large wrench in both hands. Prove you're alive. Paulina crossed her arms. Open this door before Big P the G proves the wrench won't save you. Dottie immediately stepped aside. Pete was waiting near the back of the garage. He had created a spear from a metal pole and a sharpened screwdriver. We've got a problem, Pete said. A heavy impact shook the rear entrance. The infected had gathered outside. How many? Lucas asked. Enough. That music is really off-putting. The door burst open. Pete held the narrow corridor while Dottie swung his wrench at anything that came through. Paulina stood beside them, using her bat to prevent the infected from surrounding the group. Lucas spotted several fuel containers beside a workbench. We can't fight all of them. Rips grabbed a flare from an emergency roadside kit. You thinking what I'm thinking? Probably not. But throw it when I tell you. Lucas poured a line of fuel across the garage floor while Sophie opened the vehicle yard. Dottie grabbed a set of keys. Everyone into the minibus. They climbed inside as the infected flooded the garage. Dottie started the engine. Now! Shouted Lucas. Rips threw the flare. Flames raced across the fuel, creating a burning barrier between the survivors and the horde. The minibus smashed through the yard gates and disappeared into the night. They found Big Lad outside a supermarket. He was pushing a trolley filled with food while swinging a garden spade at several approaching infected. Dottie stopped the minibus beside him. The doors opened. Get in! Pete shouted. Big Lad threw the shopping bags inside before climbing on board. You nearly left the crisps, Sophie said. We'd never leave the crisps. The infected surrounded the vehicle. Dottie accelerated, knocking several creatures aside as the minibus escaped into another street. Big Lad caught his breath. I heard there's an evacuation centre at the stadium. Rips looked through the rear window. That road's completely blocked. There's another route through the industrial estate, Lucas said. Big Lad nodded. That's where Ethan works. Paulina leaned forward. Then that's where we're going. Ethan had barricaded himself inside a warehouse office. He had been attempting to contact emergency services with an old radio. Every channel carried the same desperate messages. When Lucas called his name from outside, Ethan appeared out the window. You infected? No. Would you tell me if you were? That feels like a badly designed security question. Ethan lowered a ladder. The group climbed into the office while the infected wandered through the warehouse below. Found a broadcast, Ethan explained. The army is evacuating people from an airfield north of town. How long do we have? Sophie asked. Until sunrise. It's all good, Pig. It's all good. It's all good. I didn't hear you say anything, if I'm honest, bro. What do we have? Sophie asked. Until sunrise. Paulina looked through the window at the infected filling the building. We need a way out. Ethan pointed towards the loading area. There's an armored delivery truck downstairs. Keys? Dottie asked. In the security office. The security office was opposite the side of the warehouse. Between them and the keys stood dozens of infected. You say something as you died? Yeah, I said, oh no. That's literally what I said. I went, oh no. He moved across the metal walkways above the warehouse floor. GG's pig. They moved across the walkways above the warehouse floor. Lucas led with his torch while Paulina covered the rear. Rips and Pete carried tools taken from the garage, and Sophie kept hold of the mechanical supplies. They were halfway across when the walkway groaned. A support beam had been damaged. Don't move, Ethan warned. The metal beneath Big Lad's feet collapsed. He grabbed the railing before falling into the crowd below. Lucas and Rips caught his arms. The infected reached upwards, their fingers inches from Big Lad's boots. Pull! Lucas shouted. Paulina and Pete joined them. Together they dragged Big Lad back onto the walkway. He lay there breathing heavily. I'm going on a diet after this. No, you're not, Sophie said. No, I'm not. The group carefully crossed the remaining section and breached the security office. Dobby grabbed the truck keys. An emergency radio sat on the desk. A voice cracked through the speaker. This is Vulcan. Is anyone receiving? Lucas picked up the microphone. We hear you. Where are you? On the warehouse roof. We've got infected coming up the stairs. Paulina opened the office door. They were not leaving without him. The stairway to the roof was filled with infected. Pete and Rips held them back while Lucas unlocked the emergency gate. Big Lad used his spade to keep creatures away from Sophie and Ethan. At the top of the stairs, Vulcan was using a fire extinguisher as a weapon. He emptied it into the faces of the infected before swinging the metal cylinder into the nearest one. You're late, Vulcan shouted. We were rescuing everyone else, Lucas replied. The fire door began to buckle. Paulina examined the rooftop. There's no safe way down. Then she spotted a maintenance crane beside a warehouse. Its platform hung just beyond the edge of the roof. Big P the G has a plan. That sentence worries me, Rip said. Paulina climbed onto the roof ledge and jumped. She landed inside the crane platform. One by one, the others followed. Vulcan jumped last as the fire door burst open. Paulina activated the controls. The crane slowly lowered them down toward the loading area. The infected gathered on the roof above, unable to follow. That was actually a good plan, Lucas admitted. Paulina smiled. Say it properly, Pookie. Big P the G saved us. Correct. Doddy started the armored delivery truck, while Pete closed the reinforced doors. The vehicle crashed through the warehouse shutters and onto the road. The journey north was dangerous. They drove through burning streets, abandoned military checkpoints, and crowds of infected drawn by the sound of the engine. At one point, the truck became trapped behind a collapsed bridge. Ethan used a map to find an old country lane. Vulcan navigated through the darkness while Sophie treated everyone's cuts and bruises. Rips kept watch from the roof hatch. Pete reinforced the doors with chains, and Big Lad organized the remaining food. Nobody was left behind, nobody was bitten, and nobody died. As dawn approached, they reached the airfield. Hundreds of survivors were waiting behind military barricades. Soldiers opened the gates when they saw the armored truck approaching. The group climbed out together. Paulina looked back towards the distant town. Smoke covered the horizon, and the sound of the infected could still be heard beyond the fences. This isn't over, she said. No, Lucas replied. But we're still here. Sophie handed everyone a chocolate bar. Rips raised his like a glass. Surviving the first night. Lottie smiled. Finding somewhere with working showers? He'd looked at the fortified airfield. To make sure this place stays standing. Big Lad opened his chocolate. To breakfast! Ethan checked the radio for new broadcasts while Vulcan watched the road they had just travelled. Lucas looked at the people around him. The world they knew had ended in a single night. But their group had survived it together. Paulina nudged him with her shoulder. You did all right, Pookie. Lucas sighed. You're never going to stop calling me that, are you? Not even when we rebuild civilization. For the first time since the outbreak began, they laughed. Beyond the barricades, the Get Dead continued to wander. But inside the airfield, the 9 survivors stood together, alive and infected, and ready for whatever came next. What do you reckon on that? I don't know, that's a good fucking foundation for a good story, that is.